Hey guys, Mrs. Rainey here. Just wanted to go over our printmaking lesson with y'all. So this is printmaking, an e-learning version. It's a little different than the version we would do if we were in the studio, but that's totally okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we would have done if we were in the studio, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do for our own project while we're at home in distance learning. So these are some examples of some of the types of work that I hope you guys will be able to complete for me and for us. All right. When we talk about printmaking, we talk about the history, the origins, and the how-tos. So printmaking is super old. It's so incredibly old. The history of printmaking dates back several thousand years, all the way to the Sumerian civilization, which existed in 3000 BCE. So BCE is before the Common Era. So our Common Era is the year 2020. So if the Sumerians existed in 3000 BCE, 3000 plus 2020 is a lot, right? So printmaking is very, very old. This image here at the top is an impression from a cylinder seal from Babylonia in 8th century BCE. If you want to, when you look at the slideshow on your own, you can click on this Britannica link and you can dive further into printmaking if you want to really geek out about it. Okay, so what is printmaking? There are four main types of printmaking. The type that we would normally do in the studio is a relief print, and that's where we cut or carve into a piece of wood or a piece of linoleum, or I love to use styrofoam because we can just take a pencil and we can kind of gouge into the styrofoam with our pencil, and then we can ink it and print it, and it makes a really neat design. The other way is intaglio. This is etching or engraving, and lithography is the third way. And then silkscreen, which most of us know about silkscreen, that's a screen print. And if you have a t-shirt with a design on it, chances are it was probably done through the process of silkscreening. Okay, so for e-learning, what we're going to do though is we're going to explore the oldest form of printmaking, which is texture rubbings. And again, you guys are probably all familiar with texture rubbings. A basic texture rubbing would be like a stamp or like putting a leaf under a piece of paper and rubbing over it with a Crayola crayon. We're going to do something that's more in depth than that, but that is the basic premise of our kind of jumping off point where we're going to start from. This video here on this screen, I would love for you guys to watch it. I want you guys to go through this presentation on your own. I'm posting it in Canvas, and I want you to go through this presentation on your own, and I would love you to watch this video about printmaking. Okay, so descriptions of the printmaking processes. Intaglio usually involves metal plate and acid. The ink is rubbed onto the plate and wiped away, so ink only stays in the grooves of the plate. Under pressure of a press, the ink is forced out of the plate and onto the paper. Lithography. That is when areas of a stone or metal plates are treated so ink will be retained by certain areas. Relief. Again, the relief printmaking process is what we use when we're in school. Since we're not in school and we're e-learning, this is the e-learning version of printmaking. But a relief print comes from a woodcut or linoleum or other block that we carve into. The image is cut away from the block, and the remaining surface is inked and pressed onto paper. And that's how we get our print. And then screen printing, that's when ink is forced through a screen and onto paper by a squeegee. All right, so money, money, money. Did you know that artists are responsible for designing and updating our nation's money? Pretty interesting, huh? Intaglio printmaking is the method used to print all of our currency. So again, when you're watching this or when you're flipping through this slideshow on your own, if you click on this link, you'll get to see inside one of our very own money factories here in the United States. And a fun fact about our money factories is that there are only two in the entire US. One of them is right here in Fort Worth, Texas. And I've actually been to that printing press and that money factory and seen our currency being printed. And I actually went when the intaglio artists were in town. So I got to meet some of the artists who make the designs into our nation's currency. And it was fantastic. It was so neat. They come into town twice per year. They always come once in the spring and then once during the summer. So if you ever want to take a field trip with your family over the summer to the Money Factory in Fort Worth, a terrific time to go is when the intaglio artists are there demonstrating the process to you. You'd get to meet them. I would love to show you guys pictures, but because it's the Money Factory, the security's so tight, no phones and no cameras are allowed at all. So, but that's a great, neat thing about printmaking, about artists and artistry, and about us right here in Texas. And money. Who doesn't love money, right? Okay, texture rubbings and printmaking. So rubbing is one of the most universal and perhaps the oldest of the techniques used in printmaking. Rubbings are made by carefully pressing paper onto a carved or incised surface so that the paper conforms to the features to be copied. You can see here, this is like random household items, everyday things. I see a quarter, a paper clip, another paper clip, a binder clip. This up here looks like a piece of string, bobby pin, maybe a button here. And it looks like they've used a black crayon. For this assignment, you really only need a pencil and a piece of paper. If you don't have any random items at your house that you think could make texture, you can hold that piece of paper up to the wall. You can rub your pencil across it and your wall will create texture. You can go outside on your front porch and you can rub the sidewalk, and that will make texture. So there are no excuses for this project. We can be super creative, and we can just use a pencil, a piece of paper, and create rubbings from anything. All right, so this is a video of me creating texture rubbings. I'm showing you guys techniques for how to do different common items, how to break down common household items, like how to peel the cardboard off a piece of a cardboard box and get to the corrugation and rub that, how to erase out or erase lines. Use your eraser to draw lines through the texture rubbing. So this is a terrific video. It's about 9 minutes long, so I'm not going to play it in this presentation, but I hope you guys are going through these slideshows on your own and watching them and making sure that you fully understand the project before you start it. Okay, printmaking tools. So these are the printmaking tools we would use if we were in the studio. It's a lino cutter and gouge tips, a baren for smoothing and getting a smooth print, a brayer for rolling in the ink and then rolling the ink onto our plate or our block. Then there's an inking plate. And then there's the linoleum or the piece of styrofoam or the piece of wood, whatever we're going to carve into with these gouge tips is what we typically use in the studio for printmaking. We also use block printing ink. It's important to know that block printing ink is the proper material that we ink our plates with. We don't use paint. We use the thicker, sticky block printing ink because it creates a better print. Okay? All right, but since we're not in the studio and we're at our homes and we're e-learning, our printmaking tools are going to be things that we can find around our homes. So if you look at this top right picture over here, all you need to complete this assignment is a pencil and a piece of paper. That's all you need. But if you have any of these other things, that they can make this assignment fun and really pop. So if you have crayons or watercolors or colored pencil or a black colored pencil or charcoal or anything, a white crayon, fancy Sharpies, whatever at your house, you can really take this project to an amazing level. All right. So again, not mandatory, optional to use these extra things, but if you have them, the sky's the limit. Go for it. Okay. So crayons or colored pencils, watercolors, Sharpies, markers, and some random household items. I want to see you guys get creative. If you look at this picture over here on the left, my random household items included coins, paper clips, Lego pieces. So if you have any Lego pieces or if you have any siblings with Lego pieces, those make terrific texture plates. A marathon medal. If you have a medal or if you've won any, tournaments or sports achievements or anything like that, academic medals, those make really neat rubbings. You can put a piece of paper right over the top of it and then use your pencil to rub on it, and you can get this in a print, and it's really neat. Okay, a comb, a hair comb is terrific and wonderful to use. A piece of cardboard, you can peel that top thin layer back and expose the rigid, ruffled edges, and that makes for a great texture when you rub on it. And then I found an old candle lid that had this diamond pattern in it. That diamond pattern is actually there's a fancy art word for that. It's called harlequin. So I thought, ooh, this harlequin pattern is so neat. So get creative, use your imaginations, and don't be afraid to experiment and try, all sorts of different things. Okay, so this is totally optional. This idea is optional. It's not mandatory at all, but if you have these items around your house, scissors, a cardboard box, and liquid glue, like what's in this picture, you can create your own do-it-yourself texture rubbing plate. So you can draw out a picture with the Elmer's glue or your liquid glue or a scene, or you could just do random designs. Like on this one, I just did random designs to see, hey, what's going to happen if I do these random designs? Let it dry completely overnight. And then try texture rubbing with pencils and paper and whatever over it, whatever you're using. The sky's the limit. So again, this is optional. This is not mandatory. It's just an idea to create your own textures, okay? Here are your project guidelines. For Art 1, you must create an original work of art using the technique of rubbing. You must use a minimum of 3 different textures from rubbing within your work of art. Your work of art must resemble a plant, animal, or insect. And then the final guideline, the final stipulation, this has to be on all of the works of art. All of your work submitted must have your signature in the bottom right corner and the year, like 2020 or like a dash in 20. And this signature must be handwritten, and there are no digital signatures. So when you're photographing your artwork or if you're doing a video submission to me, I need to see that you have signed your work of art with your own handwriting and signed it small, in the bottom right corner. I don't want your signature to take over your whole work of art. We want to be tactful with how we sign our work, but I need to see that it's your work, you've done it, and it has your signature on it. Okay? Every good artist signs their work. So part 1 is that you must submit a sample of at least 3 different textures that you created through rubbing. Okay? I don't want you going to the internet and screenshotting, 3 different texture rubbings from the internet. These have to be yours. Your signature, handwritten signature, needs to be in the bottom right corner of your 3 rubbings. If you submit 3 separate photos, 1 rubbing with each photo, or if you put all 3 textures on 1 piece of paper, I need to see your signature on the bottom right corner of however many photographs you upload or however many samples you upload. So if you do 1 page that has all 3 samples, 1 piece of paper, and you do 3 different samples in different places on that 1 piece of paper, then you can just sign that 1 piece of paper. That's fine. But if you use 3 separate sheets of paper to do your 3 separate textures, I need to see your signature on the bottom of each of them. Okay? This part 1, where you must submit a sample of at least 3 different textures that you created through rubbing, is due Sunday, April 26th before 11:59 p.m. All right. Part 2. Part 2 is your final assignment. Your final assignment is the completed rubbing that is your plant or your animal or your insect. It's your completed drawing of the plant, the animal, or the insect with a minimum of 3 different textures inside of it, okay, or around it, or in that work of art. This is due Sunday, May 3rd. So this is a 2-week project. At the end of week 1, I need to see that you know how to successfully create texture rubbings. That's when you submit your samples of your 3 different textures, okay? That's part 1. due Sunday, April 26th. Part 2, your final assignment is the completed work of art, the whole rubbing, the whole completed work of art that uses at least 3 different textures within it and resembles either a plant, animal, or insect. Okay? And that is due May 3rd before 11:59 p.m. All right, so now you're saying, oh, I don't know, this is so hard. What are the examples? What are some ideas? I'm going to show you some ideas right here and examples. So you can see here, okay, top left, this is a cat on a fence post, okay? You can clearly see different texture inside of the cat, then what's on the fence, then what's on this cross post of the fence, then what's in the background here behind the cat's head, and then in the sky, and even another texture. So I'm counting at least 6 to 7 textures in this one piece, okay? Come over here to the top right. This is a horse, all right? I can tell this artist used a string in the horse's head. Fantastic. If you have any dental floss at home, any string at home, thread at home, you can put that under your paper and you can rub right over it. And then you can take your eraser and you can erase out, all the parts you want to erase out. This is a very famous work of art by a famous artist named Max Ernst, who was a pioneer in these type of texture rubbing artworks. Okay. This blue one here, this is a robot. Now, a robot is not a plant, an animal, or an insect, okay? But this robot is another famous artist's work, all right? And now she's done a ton of, mechanical and robotic images. You guys for Art 1 need to do an animal, an insect, a plant, something natural from our natural world. Okay. This girl on the bottom here, this portrait of this woman, I can tell the artist used their eraser in many parts of this, erased out the X's in the band of her hat. I can tell there was some erasures done in her hair and around her eyes. Okay. It looks like they went in also and added darker texture in specific lines. Look how they changed up the texture in the hair here. So get creative, guys. The sky's the limit. I can't wait to see what you do with this. I miss y'all like crazy. You guys did a terrific job last week with your photographs. I was super impressed. This last slide is just the lesson plan itself. If you or your folks need to see exactly what the lesson plan is, it's here for you. All right. So I hope you guys have a terrific week. If you have questions, email me, let me know, and I will hopefully see you guys soon or chat with you later.